So we have a quorum for the Board of Ethics meeting, and our first item of business is the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, which you've circulated. I had no comments.
I think I circulated them a while ago, and you both,
Yeah,
informally
approved.
approved, yeah.
I got them from you.
Back when it was fresh in our mind, but I have a copy, Betsy, if you want to look at them.
I've got it in the minutes, yeah, no, I read them, and I'm gonna find them in a minute. I hope they haven't, my iPad is making me crazy. No. When did you send the last email? You sent it to remind me.
Yesterday, wasn't it?
It was yesterday,
Okay.
and maybe, I think I resent the minutes this morning.
Pam sent an email with
Oh, wait a minute, I
everything.
need to get into.
This morning.
Town of Washington Wireless. Okay, where is that? Let's go
We
to
started
settings.
405.
Town of Washington Wireless. Okay.
At the CAC meeting, we also start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
been
I
here
suppose we
before?
should do that.
You don't have to.
Okay.
So few of us.
I don't want to forget this, I don't have to do that. It says my iPad will no longer join this network, why? Because I've got the password, but private Wi-Fi. Oh, this is terrible, it means I have nothing.
No, do you want
Yeah.
to just look at it in the
Yeah, I
hard
read the
copy?
minutes, of course, when you sent them, and I have no additions or exceptions. Only a year ago, not quite.
I know, if you could remember it, it's good thing I did them back at the time. I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Okay, you want a motion to accept them? I'll move to accept the minutes as circulated.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are approved.
I don't know why I can't get into this, maybe my upgrade isn't good enough. But I know, oh wait, no.
Is it your email you're trying to get into?
I want to get into the wireless, and I have I know the password for the town office building, but
I'm surprised your iPad doesn't automatically download it for you
I know,
when you
well,
walk in the building.
oh, I'm on Wi-Fi though. Oh, so this is all nonsense. Brett says there's a fairly new address that Fred gave me, but it says new town of Washington or something. I mean, yeah, that's what it says right here. So I'm gonna forget it, but I've got Wi-Fi, so I can get to the emails. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to add to your minutes today, the opening for the two positions to add to the committee have been processed. Mary's editing them, and they'll be downloaded onto our website, and we'll start recruiting
Okay.
for two
so
additional
how does that
members.
go? How does that
Two
go?
additional members. We'll do
You
it the same
ask
way.
If people are interested?
Correct. But when we reached out to get you three,
Mhm.
she and I worked on being very specific on the kind of person we wanted, someone with background either in law or medicine or corporation, but dealt with ethics as their profession.
Mhm.
And that's how we got you. So that's the way we're going to approach it and try and pick up two more people.
We have had some conversations just informally when we run into each other. And there's a person that one of you doesn't know. Who doesn't know? Laura doesn't know?
I know.
You
I
do know
talked to
Charlie?
him.
The name of Charlie Whedon came up, and he's not a lawyer or a doctor or any of those
That's
things.
fine. Have him contact Mary and get his name in.
I think that's what the proper thing to do.
That's
okay?
right. If anybody's interested, they should.
Because he
just
seemed
submit.
to have some interest in, he's the kind of
He
guy
did, yeah.
that I, for one, know. I've known him for a long time. You probably have
Yeah,
too.
sure.
He's been around town. He doesn't make a big splash.
Mhm.
His biggest splash is playing tennis, I guess. And he owns property on the other end of Nine Partners
Mhm.
Lane. And he's been a very good citizen in a variety of ways.
Right, and his wife has been involved in a lot of things,
Oh,
Hester,
Hester's
yeah,
done, she's
so,
very involved.
So if we get his name in, and then we'll get 2 more, and then we'll pass it by, and then we have to then take that to the board, so the board.
How are we gonna say that we really want a couple of guys?
Because
We can't do that, can we?
we are well, the way we'll post it is we're recruiting for 2 additional members of the Ethics Committee, because that was adopted the night that you adopted the
Right, no,
law.
but I'm saying, we'd rather not have 2 more women. We think it'd be.
No,
a balance.
people.
we don't mind 2 more women, we just thought there might maybe,
She's looking for, we'll list it as looking for candidates for
Okay.
2 additional
Right.
candidates.
Actually, there are.
And by
some
having
very
5 is good
interesting
because-
women Lawyers who, around here.
Sure.
Many who have retired, many who may not have practiced a whole lot even, but they're lawyers. I mean, Claire Reed probably didn't practice for more than 2 years. She got married and went to Bangladesh.
I think it's so unique in that you need that kind of experience, or at least education on what ethics is and how it applies
Yeah,
to
oh, yeah, yeah,
that
no, you're right.
just a regular person. We get a lot of people that want to do something in the town,
But they, yeah,
but then
they don't
necessarily not for an ethics position, maybe recreation or
Mhm.
planning or zoning.
Yeah.
But even planning and zoning, you're looking for people that have that kind
Some
of
knowledge,
perhaps
yeah.
expertise.
Yeah.
So that's the way what Mary is
Okay, well, that's
processing all
fine.
that.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And we have openings also in zoning, planning, we just filled BAR, and we've got recreation. So it'll be a bundled ask also.
so can I ask about the process? So Mary collects
You get the
applications,
names,
get the names, the people
then we
submit
do an interview
themselves.
process.
Then will we interview them, or is it
And
first, or
a
the
couple
town
of the
board
town
does
board
it
members
first?
and I and you could interview, and then we make the decision.
Okay.
And by keeping it at 5, it makes for that odd number, so
Yeah,
votes
which is
aren't.
good.
Right. I mean, I just wondered if we would have
That's
an
the process.
opportunity
Oh,
to
sure.
interview the people, just to
Absolutely.
make sure there's
When we did the rec,
compatibility and.
we hired the new rec director, we not only interviewed through the town board, but we also gave an evening of interview to the recreation board also, and they interviewed
Oh,
the
good.
candidates also.
Okay, that
That's
sounds
very
good. That sounds
Okay,
good.
very good.
Okay?
So I should tell Charlie just to wait till it pops up on the website?
No, he can, the word's out, so.
Just go ahead and do it? Okay.
Tell him to go ahead.
I mean, if he's still interested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anybody else you run into, it doesn't necessarily have to be that they read it, just the word should be out there that we're looking for 2 more.
But it should be, I mean, has to be a town resident. It
Has to be a
can't be a
town resident.
weekender type of
Has to be a
person.
town
Yeah.
resident.
That's why I thought about Fred, but I'm not sure.
Who's Fred? Oh, Fred Howard?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether he's a
full-time
town
resident.
resident.
We're looking
I
full-time
don't
resident.
think they vote here.
I don't think they do either. That's why I
Right.
He'd
decided,
be excellent.
he would be great, but I mean, he's got the mediator experience and all that stuff.
here.
That's the kind of,
Yeah,
But
he would
they
be
need
perfect,
full-time-
but I don't think he's a
residents.
full-time resident. I can ask, just to be sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean.
'Cause he would be a
the
good-
Chances are pretty good that they eventually will be full-time residents. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of people have done that,
Yeah.
as you know.
Yeah.
And even more during COVID probably. And then people want to vote certain ways that sometimes change that.
another subject before you get into your,
Yeah.
is
This is.
Jeff
very important.
Battistoni and I happened to attend a state-sponsored presentation up at the Roosevelt State. The initial reason we were going was for short-term rentals, because that was part of the agenda. But when we got there, another presentation was on the conditions and responsibility of zoning and planning board members from an ethical perspective.
How interesting.
And this was the material that was given out. I've met with planning, zoning, and CAC thus far.
Oh,
Oh,
Now I'm
thank
giving it
you.
to you. Pam has a copy from last night. And excellent stuff on the tightening up of policies, not policies, but procedures that members of those committees enact as they go out into the public, whether it's site
oh, yes.
or whether it's making decisions.
Important.
Some tightening up, paralleling the strictness of open meeting laws. And therefore, some cases that have gone, as the lawyer said to us, some cases that have gone before judges have been kicked back and decisions have been negated because ethical misconduct occurred when the decisions were being made, such as going out on a site visit, site visits are supposed to be that, a visit, to look at what has been presented in writing and verbally as testimony before a group. It's not supposed to be a conversation. It's not supposed to be suggestions on moving things around. There's to be
What's the
no
difference, you mean?
If I went on a
About the planning board,
planning and zoning and CAC.
you can go out and look at what's there, but not.
They shouldn't
say
get
we should
involved in,
move this.
exactly.
Okay.
All of that needs to be done around the table as part of the
So
formal
it's no ex
presentations.
parte or ex officio conversations kind of.
Correct. Also, recusing and abstaining is another big issue.
This is the big issue, we think.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we do.
And I also prefaced it by saying, your group has developed an expanded ethics code for the town now. There will be education on that. You'll hear more things about it, but this is specific to zoning and planning, which is not covered in our ethics law, but now is a part of the addendum to it.
Very-
Oh, okay, it was going to be attached as part
Well,
of it.
it's in the folders, and
Excellent.
people are educated on it, they know it.
Good.
The final of every meeting has been, if you have a question, call Jeff Battistoni or Sarah.
Mhm.
Now that Jeff has been made a judge in Pleasant Valley,
Oh, is that right?
he's no longer sitting in on zoning and planning.
Is he still town attorney?
He's still the town attorney. He can still be the town attorney, but he can't participate in zoning and planning
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure last night if he was.
because probably decisions are made, and he writes opinion on code, so he has to be impartial. So I just give that to everyone to add to your resource material.
Yeah, that's great.
It's a really, I read it last night, it's a very good summary of the law. It kind of wraps around a lot of what we're doing in our code of ethics.
Yes,
So,
yeah, it looks that way. I haven't read
It's
it
good.
all.
Oh, that's good. It's educational for us. too.
Yes, it all looks. And these are places where things can go wrong.
Absolutely.
And there are, I think in almost all the towns have had or still have relatives working together in the
Sure.
town, that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. We have to be, I mean, they have to be looked at from a really clear eye.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, this is really interesting. They have all the, just even the mechanics of recusal.
Yeah.
You can stay in the room, but you,
Well, it was
you know,
funny.
to go into the
Which is all
audience. and-
things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
He gave an example of a chairman of a planning board whose relative had not an issue, but a petition to planning for approval, barn or something. And the gentleman recused himself, but he didn't leave the room. He sat in the front row and he gave hand signals to the members of the committee
Ah.
of how to vote.
So he,
They said, the best thing, get out, get it in writing why you don't have to say why you're recusing yourself,
No, but we talked about that.
yeah, we all decided
but
that.
you
we
have
didn't
to get it into the minutes that you are recusing yourself.
Mhm.
Leave the room, don't participate in anything, it stays crystal clear, and then there's no judge saying, this wasn't done wrong, take it back, make another decision. When it goes back, it has to be supermajority. Whereas most decisions on planning and zoning just have to be a simple majority. If it comes back after it's gone to court and gets kicked
Mhm.
back, it has to be supermajority,
Interesting.
Mhm.
which is more
That was the
difficult.
problem with Paul Schwartz, really.
A little bit,
He
yeah.
disclosed,
Yeah.
but he stayed right in the
Yeah,
discussion.
yeah.
Well, he didn't even recuse. I mean, he didn't even,
He disclosed,
yeah.
he didn't recuse,
No.
he disclosed.
So it's important that you just get it in all your minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've got the training that I circulated.
Yes,
And so the plan would be to get comments on the training and then to schedule in-person sessions or Zoom sessions, both really, as many as people thought was necessary. Do you
I have it all here.
have it there?
Yeah.
And Laura, you've got a copy? Mike,
Yeah.
You've got a
yeah.
copy?
And when I went out and did my little ethics one on planning and zoning, I asked all of the chairpersons of those committees if it would be allowable for them to schedule a meeting a half hour prior to their meeting time so that if you wanted to make
Perfect.
use of that half hour prior to planning, prior to zoning, prior to CAC, they said they would be more
That
than
should be
happy
plenty
to
of
do
time,
that.
don't you think?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely.
Now, as far as the
Plenty.
employees in this building,
Mhm.
I would talk to Mary and you could schedule the highway department guys. I know when we do the annual training on what was it? Improper conduct, when you're
Like the sexual harassment.
sexual
Yeah.
harassment training.
Yeah,
The highway guys are in here, some of the court people are here, we're here, some of the board members come because it's a convenient time. They do that sometimes in the morning or sometimes
Mhm.
after lunch.
Has to be done once a year, is that right? Something like
That's supposed to be done once a
that.
year, which
So-
is the same thing over and over again, but
yeah,
Yeah,
it's required.
this would be once, or maybe for new hires.
I think we talked about doing it for
New hires.
new people or new appointees.
Well, once you do this, this could be part of the new employee packet,
Right,
but also a presentation.
I think although it might be some work for us to do and for the people, for their time, I think it's giving stuff to people in the packet doesn't always do it. You know, they glance through it and take it home and they put it in the file, just like everybody does. So I think it's probably better if we can do maybe two out of three of us, or however many members we have, we could, maybe not everybody would have to be there, but I think we should do some kind of one-on-one or three-on-one or whatever, personal training and actually go through some of this and ask them about it. I think no training is really good enough, but at least I'm doing my judicial training online now. And I can fall asleep in the middle of it.
Right.
And if I do, I lose the code.
You lose the code number and then you're in real
If that
trouble.
happens, I have to start over again. So I try not to fall asleep.
So you're saying one-on-one, you mean for new people or?
No,
for-
I don't know. I think we have to kind of muddle through it and see that everybody that we think and the board thinks needs to hear the training gets to hear it instead of just being handed it.
Oh, I
Oh, no,
agree.
no,
Oh,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
That's all.
But I think once you give it, I also would hand it
Oh, absolutely.
so that they got it in their own file. So if a case ever came up, they
Mhm.
can't claim, I did not know.
Right,
right.
No,
right.
you're absolutely right.
So group presentation,
Well, did we ever put any, usually with the sexual harassment policy, you have to sign something saying
Yeah, I
you've
was gonna
received it
say
and you've
that.
read it.
And that's in fact part of the new code.
Yeah, I thought
So
so.
once-
and we have to sign in when we come to those presentations.
Right, so we need a record that people have actually attended.
Well, not so much.
And see-
attended,
and read it.
But they have to certify once a year that they're in compliance with
Yep.
the
Right.
code.
That's
Right.
what we had to
Which
do with the
is-
hospital
Yes.
foundation.
And we get that every January from Mary's office. We would get that and sign that we are aware.
But that's already in here, right?
So that's in here.
Yeah.
But that's
Right.
actually new. I mean, in the past, you only had to sign that
A
you've
few
received,
people.
that you've received a copy of the.
Now everybody will have to do it.
Yeah, I thought we had covered that, but, okay.
So that certification process was something I wanted to talk to Mary about eventually, because it's administrative, whether that's something we could help her with, drafting that certification and monitoring who signed it, who hasn't.
Mhm.
That's something that maybe should I talk to her directly about?
Yeah, I would talk to Mary. I know she tracks everyone that comes for the sexual harassment training.
Mm-hmm,
She also tracks if you do it online.
mm-hmm.
That's all recorded and it's kept in the file, the
Okay.
personnel file. So it would just be another document that they've also attested to, that they've attended or received or went through
Yeah,
the ethics training.
yeah.
I mean, if she's got a process for doing it, it's probably
does.
better just to let
Yeah.
her.
Just let her plug her in.
Fold this into that.
Offer to help because
If she-
it's a
yeah.
burden.
If she has to chase people
And she's
down
got the
or-
list of all the volunteers, who's the volunteers.
Mhm.
She keeps track of all of those when their tenure is up and so on and so forth.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Okay.
good.
I can do that. So, this is the training. It simply tracks the code. the highlights. And I think what I envision is that the Board of Ethics will present this. Hopefully it'll be interactive, can ask questions. We can also distribute the actual code at the time of the training so people can see what we're talking about.
I think that's.
And, I can give a lot of the training, but it's very boring to have one person do all the talking. So I think it might be helpful.
We can switch off,
If we can switch off and plan.
Or do it together,
that some
so
of us will
different
be-
voices.
Different voices, definitely is gonna be better. So we can do a quick page turn if.
Yeah,
if-
that would be.
If we want. So,
My first thought, and maybe this is not necessary, but it's kind of a minor point, but do you think we should have a slide on who is covered? So people understand that volunteers as well as paid people or do you think that's so elementary? Yeah, like right in the,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's, or we at least cover it orally.
So it's
a good
implicit,
idea.
it's implicit in this last bullet, but perhaps it's covered too quickly, and this could be built.
Well, it
out
is,
into
yeah.
its own slide. That would be just.
If you think, it just struck me that it was, that it might be, the employees might not know that board people, that appointed people are. I mean, it's a minor thing, and if you don't think we need to, I'm not.
No, I think.
upset about it,
It's a
I don't
very,
think it's minor.
it's
Because
critical.
what about volunteers? A lot of people are volunteer members of the town planning board.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, just to make sure everybody
Okay.
understands that it's not
And
just,
I think it's important that people understand that even though they're volunteers, and we thank you daily for your participation, that they're also subject to these rules.
Right.
It's really any person who's appointed by the town board to a board, so.
Right.
Okay.
and part of the reason I wanted to do it is also the negative implication, because at the last town board meeting, someone asked the question if contractors were covered. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And they're not.
And consultants are not
And,
covered.
and they aren't,
no.
so I don't,
They are
just to make sure there's no confusion, here's who's covered.
Mhm.
These are people who are appointed by the town board.
Yeah.
If that's the definition.
Right.
Who are performing services, yeah, exactly. I mean, I just don't want people thinking it's
But
broader
that
than it is
includes
too.
the CAC then.
It
Yes.
does.
Because
It
that's
does.
Anybody that is an elected official or appointed to a board within the
So
town
are
are
they
subject to
appointed
this.
to CAC?
Yes,
Yes.
they are.
Yes, it's committee, I think
How
we,
does that happen? Does somebody show interest? Because it's a citizens group, basically.
But it's an
not a-
advisory committee, so we, under the charter of the CAC, it's part of the town law that the town have a CAC.
Okay.
And when it was established, we reached out to people who have interest in that. They come before us, they get interviewed. When they take their oath, they sign, and they're a member of that.
Interesting to me that a lot of them used to be much more critical than they are now. They've gotten to know so much about what goes on.
Yeah, and I think
I think they've realized what the board has to go through.
and they're cycling through too. I think people have retired, new people are come in. I think there's more coming from the state on the use of the CAC, how it's used in the community. It is an one of the challenges with the CAC membership is they are aware that they are advisory. So the planning board asks for their opinion, or the zoning asks for their opinion on subject matters. They're not a legislative group that
No, they don't-
establishes
they don't
things.
Make the motion, yeah.
Correct.
yeah, so that, it would be important for people to know that they're covered too.
And recreation's covered.
And, okay,
Recreation, the BAR is covered. Board of Assessment Review is covered. Any of our umbrella that falls under the town is covered.
Well, the only important thing is to be sure that they know they're covered
Yeah.
and that we tell it to them in
Correct.
a kind way. Because I don't want, and none of us wants people to say, oh, no, not me, I'm not doing that.
No.
That this is going to be a very fair kind of process.
Right.
Whatever comes up.
And if someone was to balk at accepting that they fall under the Ethics Committee, I don't think they should be.
you
on
might
the
not want
committee.
them. Deserve,
Because
yeah.
you wonder why.
That's the only place that I can think of where they would be in but not the CAC as it seems to be behaving now. But what, 20 years ago or whatever, when they first, I remember the planning board members, including, who my
Mhm.
husband would say, they're such pains in the ass. And I would say, yes, honey, but it's necessary.
Yes.
You gotta have those
Yes.
pot stirrers,
Yeah.
you gotta have the people that
Oh, yeah.
say,
And I would assume if the question of contractors was to come up, and the contract was to submit a bid, that somebody at the table of interacting with that contractor, if they have a ethical conflict of interest,
It gets covered that way.
gets covered.
It comes within our
yeah.
purview
what
that way.
happens when people, let's say you're getting bids for something and you get your 3 or 5 or however many bids, and there's probably usually a 3-bid process at least.
Depends on the dollar value, but yes,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
typically a 3-bid process.
Who asks them about conflicts? Does the town board interview them, or is it part,
We go through the bidding process in business office
yeah?
to find out why they're being hired. And then we look at who it is and so on and so forth. In a small town, it becomes a challenge, as
Yeah.
the one I gave you yesterday states in there that it's very difficult sometimes in a small to really be 100%. But as long as you're verbalizing that, oh, I know this person, or he's my neighbor, or if it's a relative, you recuse yourself from bidding on, from approving that contract.
But what about the contractor? If the contractor is the brother of somebody on the town board, what do you do then?
It's the obligation of the town
Board member
to,
to reveal that and to recuse themselves.
there's no, this particular code,
The contractors themselves don't have to.
They don't.
Well, and this is a related question, but maybe it gets to what you're thinking. Forget about the hiring of them, like a conflict, like a nepotism issue or something, but does the town have sort of any ethical requirements of contractors, or do we just, it's just a commercial thing, that we don't?
we don't.
Because they're a private entity coming in to do
Right.
business, I don't.
I mean, that's
know.
just a curiosity point on my part.
I don't know.
Well, I think it can be more than that.
But it's not our jurisdiction
No.
one way or the other. I mean, I just would like to, I guess I want to know.
We do have a lot of contractors that balk on bidding because of regulations on the state level with certain salary requirements and so on and so forth. There's a certain wage scale you have to follow. And
Right.
we have difficulty getting contractors because of the
They're
restrictions.
not paying everybody minimum wage or something.
That type of thing. In fact, we're in that process right now of looking at a new electrician because Mr. Spagnola has aged out and wants to retire, and and we're going out for bid on that stuff. And fair wage, or if there's a term for it. A lot of contractors don't want to do it. So it's a challenge, but it's not an ethical challenge.
Yeah.
It's a business
I
challenge.
mean, one of the things that we had talked about, this is a little bit off point, but one of the things we had talked about, and I haven't done it yet just because I thought Mary Alex was kind of swamped with other things we were asking her to do. But we wanted to collect any kind of policies that the town already has, like a sexual harassment
good
policy
idea.
Oh, yeah,
or
we have
any
those.
other codes of
We have those.
conduct.
We have those.
Yeah, and just so that we know that we aren't stepping on any toes.
I think they're in fact, I think they're in binders.
Okay, good. So
in the main
I'm going to
office.
ask Mary Alex to help me
Yeah.
put that together. But,
Good idea.
and I just was wondering if we had any contractor rules or anything like that.
Other than you have to follow the county and the state regulations on going out for bid, that's the
Yeah.
only ones I'm aware of, but there may be others.
Okay.
Are
So,
there fair wage problems with everybody?
Yes, because the contractors today
Yeah.
are so busy.
You know what's interesting?
and have no
I would
staff.
ordinarily say that's wonderful, and yet I've just heard from Fred that, as I was talking to him about the work he's doing with Abilities First and InFlight, and I said, don't they used to teach developmentally disabled kids to do certain things, and they could get jobs. And they could do jobs like stuffing envelopes, stuff like that. And he said that's all been dropped because somebody came up with a problem with the kids that were working getting fair minimum wage.
Yeah.
And I think that's ridiculous.
Could be.
Beyond belief.
Yeah.
Because there are a couple of.
Because you can't have
working
internships
are
anymore,
working
like
at
unpaid ones.
Abilities First, who are invaluable employees, but they are developmentally disabled, and yet they have, one guy in particular, he has a memory, Fred said he remembers
Yeah.
everything that's ever been said. I mean, he's really, and of course, he is getting at least minimum wage. I don't know what the young man's paid, but Fred said he's the most valuable person in the IT department. And yet, some of those kids, and he talks about how much he loves his job. I mean, we're not gonna run into that kind of thing, I don't think.
No.
It's just to say that sometimes these things are
Anything else?
difficult.
Not on that page.
Not on that page.
I have a couple of other,
Okay, good.
nothing on slide
I
2.
just want to be
Oh,
sure there's, wait a minute, this under, I think it's page 6,
Okay.
how to recuse.
Yeah,
We do say, do not participate in discussions on the matter and do not vote on it. We do say that in the beginning. And I wonder if maybe we could say it even more strongly, like leave the room, as Mike was saying earlier.
And I had a question about, if we're going to talk about that section, we can talk about them together. I don't want, if we say do not participate in discussions on the matter, I think we're going to get a question like, well, can I talk to if I recuse myself, can I participate,
Can I
talk
to
about
my
it?
wife about it?
Talk to my neighbor that's got a similar interest to me and not having that pond built next door or
One
something.
thing I learned in
And
here
his discussion's
Yeah.
too broad.
was as a private citizen, even though you're a member of a board or an elected official or appointed official, you don't give up your right to be a
That's what I'm
citizen of
getting
the
at.
community.
Yeah,
Therefore, you can sit in the audience and listen to a presentation, let's say before planning or zoning, and you can stand and once you are recognized, you have to say, I'm here as a citizen, but I'm also a member of the town
right.
board.
But as
I'm
long
a
as you've
member-"
disclosed and recused, you should be able to
So
participate.
So that it's
I don't-
really, do
I'm not
not,
much like that.
so the legal rule is that you shouldn't participate in discussions during meetings.
I agree.
Right.
But as a practical matter, it's a kind of a higher standard to really not participate in any discussions on it generally.
And part of this, as you'll read tonight when you go through it, they're saying it becomes an ethical issue if you are ex parte or you're talking over your neighbor's
Right.
fence and you're discussing an issue and you start to verbalize your opinion and almost prejudging the outcome. And then you come to the meeting and you're sitting there and now you're making a decision. There's where the lawyers pick up on, that wasn't really
Yeah, it's
done
kind of an
ethically.
appearance of impropriety issue
Correct.
too. It's tough.
And that's
So
what
it's a
we're saying.
very
Stuff
tricky
is really
issue. I think this is a
tricky.
really,
It's very
and
tricky.
I stumbled over it myself. Should we,
Yeah, I think we
We,
all do.
we should clarify it to make it clear that the legal rule is to don't participate in the meetings.
Right.
If there's a discussion on the matter during a board meeting, don't participate in it, and of course, don't vote on it. But even outside the meetings, be thoughtful about
Correct.
discussing it at all.
I live in the small town, we all do, and it's, all of Dutchess County is a small town as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
And everybody will be talking about it.
Yeah.
If it's a big deal, issue
Right.
of some kind.
well, Migdale.
Like the thing. with
I mean,
Migdale.
you couldn't not
Everybody
talk
was
about
talking
Migdale.
it,
Yeah.
And there was a whole lot of hearsay, a
Right.
whole lot. of
But
hearsay.
you can't tell me that members of the planning board and everything else weren't talking
But
about
that's the
Migdale at dinner
problem.
parties. I mean, they had to
None
have.
of them were conflicted, right? They weren't in a position where they had to recuse
Well, that's true.
themselves,
That's
which-
true.
Which is different. The talking to
Yeah,
neighbors
that's,
at
Karen's
dinner
right, I
parties
guess.
would be more of an appearance of impropriety.
Yeah.
If anything was said, but it may not be.
But it goes to the point Mike was making, if there's some matter coming before your board and you're talking to your neighbor about it over the back fence.
You don't want to appear to.
To prejudged or
giving an
something.
opinion.
Yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I guess,
Tricky, but we might have to think of some examples. of
That's
the
what I was
difference
thinking,
when
Betsy,
we're
that
doing things.
this is something
And I
that,
think if your next door neighbor says, what the heck's going on with Migdale? Because they'll say it to you every time they see you.
yeah.
If you're on some.
And what I would do, and I was thinking when I used to teach and you have to do lesson plans
Yeah,
and you have to do purpose and all of that. This stuff is terribly boring.
yeah.
What we're doing is
It
terribly
is
boring.
true, yeah.
Guys from the highway department are going to be falling asleep
Yeah,
unless you start to entertain.
and give
And
examples.
entertain is the
Tell
examples.
stories.
and even make the example so obvious, both for and against an issue,
Mhm.
that it becomes entertaining. I wouldn't use actual issues that are happening in the town.
No, obviously,
Stay away
yeah.
from those types of things. But examples of, talking, rumors, that type of thing. Also, the attorney at the state level that we went to said, the best thing is just leave the room. Don't, if it's,
Right.
See, I
don't
like
even
that.
participate in any of it. Then there is no, it's
Nothing's gonna
transparent,
get that, yeah.
and there's no assumption, they participated, and they influenced it.
Yeah, although I think we will get, if we
Oh,
get
you will.
questions at all, we'll get
Yeah.
questions about, what about our rights to talk about our matters that are of interest to us
I'll say, I would say.
outside of these
Go out
meetings,
and
you
get in
know?
your car.
As long as you're not making it the
I'm
vote,
tired of
Right.
hearing that.
influencing the vote. I think that's what you got to be careful
Yeah, but
of.
I think we have to do it, maybe it doesn't,
Influencing the vote is a very good phrase.
yeah,
Uh,
maybe it's not something we should change on the slide, but we should just be able to talk about it.
Right, and I like the idea of,
put some-
of putting prompts for examples in
Yeah,
the
little
materials,
examples, yeah.
so that we've got something to comment.
But we don't have to put them in the slides particularly, just, we just have
yeah.
Yeah.
some we've agreed upon to,
Mhm.
that. So if we're done with that one, I had a point on slide 5. If we could go backwards one
Sure.
step.
So where had you started to ask? In the beginning, Laura,
Mm.
did you get a satisfactory, did we come to a resolution for your,
Yeah,
who's covered?
yeah, I went back and forth on slide 6 and whether we should qualify it in some way and say you don't participate in deliberative discussions, or if we should, to sort of distinguish it from outside. But I think the whole conversation has persuaded me that we should leave it alone for slide purposes, but try to just give them an admonitory,
Yeah.
you do have rights as a private citizen, but, you also have to bear in mind that you're a member of a board and there's
I
a,
actually wouldn't bring up, when someone asks, we'll talk about it. But I don't want to bring up the fact that people have rights to talk about anything they want. I don't want to get into that kind of thing.
Yeah, don't
Because
make
it
the
smacks
question.
too much of the current
Well,
political scene.
but I think that's why it's important for us to say that we should, in the slide, that when we say discussions here, the legal rule is
Yes.
during
Yes.
meetings.
but we'd like you to
more than
go,
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And the leave the room rule is the safest thing, and
Yes,
remember
yes, I
the
like
appearance
all
of
that.
impropriety if you're
And
having a
even when you
backyard
abstain-
conversation.
When you abstain, you declare why you're abstaining. I
Yeah.
mean, I know our board, because we use the local bank, there have been board members that have sat on the board of the bank. Immediately, the person raises their hand and says, I'm abstaining, because we approve all of our annual,
Budgetary things.
Bob will abstain. I abstain, I'm abstaining because I'm on the board. Now, you don't have to say why you're abstaining, he does. You don't have to say why you're recusing, but you do have to state that you are recusing.
Exactly.
Right.
Now, if it was a decision and we were debating on that bank or another bank, then Bob would leave the room, because then he's recusing himself so that he's not even listening to the conversations.
Which is the safest way to go.
Correct.
Yeah, I was just more concerned about people feeling so constrained that if they get on some committee, they're not going to be allowed to.
You're still a citizen.
Exactly.
It
They're
says
not going
here,
to be
you
allowed
don't
to
give up.
protect their own rights in
And
some
the
way.
lawyer even stated that there is a misconception that if you do serve on a board, you give up some of those rights, and
Yeah.
you don't.
Was my concern
What do
about
you do
it.
instead? I mean, what can we say that will, you said something earlier, and that was a little bit, sounded good to me.
Well, she
We
said that,
should get we should urge people to be careful about when and how they talk
Thoughtful.
about it.
Yes.
Even out in the street or when they're out to dinner.
I agree. I mean, I think
That
that's the
we should-
message, really. You have a position of trust and you have to,
Yes, and be
uphold
very
that.
careful about how you use your rights.
And not appearing to be judged.
yeah.
I think that's.
I think we can
And
say those
also not
things.
disclosing confidential information.
Well, that comes up too.
Which will come up
Right.
as part of it, and that's another.
I think we're gonna have a lot-
Discussion.
Questions on that one too, but, back on 5, if we could just real quick go back there. How to disclose, slide 5. I thought we ought to maybe toughen up the disclose as soon as possible to just something like disclose as soon as you know you have an
Yeah,
interest.
yeah, that's
Something like,
better than
just make it a
possible.
little bit tighter than as possible, because that gives a lot of leeway to people. As soon as you know you have an interest
I
or
think
something like
I
that,
think that's very good.
Uh-huh.
okay? Let's see. I had nothing on 7. Do you have anything, Betsy? Yeah.
And this is, I mean, some places I came up with examples, and the example
Yes.
on page
Yes.
7 is one that's pretty obvious, but it could at least get the discussion going. And I
Right.
can easily add similar, simple examples.
Well, we can all think about it.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we make that our homework, that we'll all think of
Think of
examples for these slides, even if we don't put them in the slides, we just have
Yeah.
things to talk about.
So, okay, so just, if I'm in the audience, I want to know, this is page 7. I own a painting company. And if we're going to hire a painting company to paint the town hall,
Mhm.
we get a bunch of people to submit bids.
Mhm.
Does it mean that my company cannot bid, or does it mean that I should not be involved in the selection of even the bidders? So these are things that,
I think that's what I think there's where you don't participate in anything. If you own the company,
you don't participate.
you
Well,
don't
this
participate.
one's about, this particular slide is about whether you should have an investment that would require you to recuse.
Well, exactly.
Well, if that's
So-
his
so-
job, he
so-
owns a painting
company, and you're involved in selecting painters. If your job involves selecting painters and you own a company that is, say, a veterinary practice,
Who cares?
then who cares? Yeah.
I mean, then you just go through the normal
Okay.
process as long as you're not involved in
Right.
choosing.
So the issue would be holding on to an investment if that investment is going to cause regular conflicts
Conflict,
with your job.
exactly.
In that case, you would either not have your job with the town, or you would go, you would go,
Or your company would never be involved in do any business with the
Right.
town. You'd have to make that
Right.
decision.
Well, that happened certainly at Vassar Hospital, when Joe Kirchhoff was on that board. And Joe couldn't do any business. The rules said he couldn't do any business. He had to stop doing any business, doing any bidding or anything for any of the buildings at the hospital,
Right.
which he had done in the past successfully. So as soon as he learned that, he realized he shouldn't be on this board at all, so
Right.
he resigned. But there is also, at that particular board, it's a 501c3. They have a 5-year look back. He had to wait 5 years after he left. the
I hope they paid their board members well. That's a pretty
They don't
strict
pay
look
them.
back.
They don't
And then
pay
they're
well.
unpaid.
It's a 501c3.
Oh, okay.
So are we thinking about any kind of look back period in any of this?
We do have a
We do,
look back.
2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, and you think that's, yeah, we did.
We
talked
decided
about
5 was
that,
too
yeah.
long for,
You think
for
that's
us.
okay?
Yeah.
I do. We went back and
Yeah,
forth
we
on
went
that
back
a
and
lot,
forth on
yeah.
that,
We
And
did,
it's,
we
and
did,
it's
I
now in
know,
the law.
okay.
It's,
No, I think that, I think that's probably fair for the town and its employees and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think the key on this slide 7 is the ongoing contractual relationship kind of thing.
And also, I mean, if the employee's got a very big job and selecting painters is only a tiny portion of it, then I think recusal for this painting selection process would work. If
Just take that part of the job out, yeah.
Right.
It's
But-
probably-
But if
Otherwise-
but if selecting painters was 100% of the job, then
Right.
that would present the conflict.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you just don't want somebody on the outside saying, well, they got the job because
Well, there's a
That's
lot of
right.
that chatter.
Well,
Mr. Murphy's company got the job because he's the supervisor.
Right.
Yeah, which
That doesn't work.
Which might be a reason why your company would never be picked, because nobody would want
Or I'm not
Well,
even
it's
involved.
Or you're not gonna be involved with it,
Unfortunately, it's also the reason why a lot of people don't want to serve on a board.
Correct. Small towns.
It's kind of too bad, but it's
But
fair.
it's fair to have,
No,
to
I'm
have other
on the
people.
side of this kind of thing, and
And there have been examples where people who have served on boards that owned companies lost business because they were
Yeah.
serving on the boards.
Yeah.
And nothing you can do about that.
No,
They decide whether they stay on or they come off.
exactly, and coming off is an option.
Correct.
Well, I think, I hope that some of the activity that's been going on will cause people to get more involved. I think we need to have more people involved.
It's more complex, that's for sure.
Things are getting much more complex, and it's not going away. Okay.
My next one, I think I resolved in my own head. The next one. Let's see if I have anything else. I didn't have very much, to tell you the truth. Oh, I thought on slide 12, I think it would be a good idea to insert the link to that pamphlet. I thought the pamphlet was really good. That pamphlet you came up
Okay,
with.
yeah.
And I think it is
Well,
useful.
so it.
We don't have to talk about
Yeah,
it,
it
but-
kind of covers us because, yeah, I feel that if we've got, this interest in contracts is a main focus of New York State law. We're not going to resolve we're not really in a position to educate
Right.
people on New York State law. We're only educating them on our own code of ethics. But if people are interested in more information on what the state law is, we could refer them to the
And
pamphlet.
I think it's a good idea because we refer to Article 18 in the code.
In
Being,
the
in
code.
addition to Article 18, you have all these following other things, so it might be good for
I
them to
see.
know
Yeah.
what's in Article 18. I mean, it's a good way to tell them that
Yeah,
without
and-
having
and
to get
it's-
into it.
It's a very simple flag, is that if you or a relative can benefit from a contract with the town of Washington, if you've got control over that contract, then you should be seeking advice. So this is really, I don't think most people will need to get into the complexities.
No.
I think it's something that most employees and board members can avoid. But it's really depending on your role, consider whether it's something.
I just didn't think it would hurt to give them the link if somebody's
Okay.
interested enough to look it up, if you don't, unless you think it's a
No,
bad
I
idea
think
for some reason.
Inserting a link is a good idea.
Okay. I think, and I don't know the answer to this, I'm just pointing it out I think we're gonna get a lot of questions on confidential information. Because I struggle with that myself, because, it's so unclear what's the public meetings law and FOIL and what's confidential and what, because the way.
If it's not discussed at a meeting, or if it's not in documents that are made public, I mean, it just seems sort of obvious what's public and what's not.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what would be confidential. I mean,
Well, I'll tell
except
you,
for what we might do in
here's what
considering a
becomes
complaint.
confident. Every time that we are in a town board meeting and an issue related to an employee comes up, we go into executive
Well,
session.
yes,
That's-
personnel
becomes-
issues.
That becomes confidential.
So maybe that would be a good example of
And when
something.
that is discussed, we are bound to maintain that confidentiality. So you don't leave the room and say, so-and-so,
Exactly.
But there aren't usually extraneous people
So-
around, are there? I mean, if
but
you're in
the-
executive session.
people
the
need to
public are
leave.
gone.
They have to
Yeah.
leave. We always do it at the end of the community meeting. Or sometimes I have been on the board where there has been an issue that carried over from a previous meeting. Our meeting was at 7:00. We come in, we'll immediately go into executive session, even though we just opened the public meeting. The public goes outside. We resolve it. We vote to go out of executive session. then the rest of the meeting continues. Or most times, we try to hold it to the end of the meeting.
I guess,
So
I'm
an
sorry.
example would be if somebody acquires information before a board meeting, town board, planning board, zoning board, that a particular application is going to be filed and has knowledge of what's in that application. The idea is that you shouldn't, that's information that you acquired during the course of your duties,
You maintain.
and you can't like go out and buy property adjacent to it or sell property adjacent to it because you've acquired the information while you're performing your duties.
That's a good one.
Then you can't.
Because I think this is one where we're going to
use it.
need some
Yeah,
examples.
and then,
Mhm.
but once the application is public, then it's no longer confidential and you can do whatever you want.
Right, because people are going to wonder, I think, when they hear this, where the line is of what they can talk to their friends about or whatever, but mostly everything that happens is public, or it's subject to being public.
It's
But
and
Not
that's-
necessarily. Sometimes there could be a board, it could be, I'll pick recreation. And maybe in a meeting, someone says, I've got some confidential information about a applicant that's going to be on a team.
Mhm.
Once you use the word confidential information, then that has to be held confidentially. And if it's a discussion on the abilities of a coach or the abilities of a child, to me, that's confidential. You don't go out in the parking lot and say,
That's like
so-and-so
personnel,
and
it's
so-and-so.
sort of like personnel information, yeah.
Yeah, and when you think about it, why should you need to talk to your
Correct.
neighbors
About,
or friends or family about work that you do for a town board? I just
Well,
don't think.
I don't
it's-
feel the
it's
need to, but I
necessary.
just think there might be people asking that question because people do, it's like Betsy said, you can hardly, during the Mingdale times, you could hardly walk down the street without somebody saying, what are you hearing, what's going on, but,
gossip can be a terrible thing.
and I think
It's
it's,
everywhere.
I think this is one where we need to be, clear with people about what
Well, Martha Stewart went to jail. Guess what? She
insider
had
trading.
information before it was public.
Right,
That was what they accused her of. That's what she pled guilty to, and that's why she went to jail. Very good example. It was about stock trading, wasn't it?
but some, yeah, it was, but somebody could ask you, is so-and-so's application still pending in front of the zoning
Yeah,
board? And you can
so-and-so-
perfectly talk about things like
That's
that, it's like
that's
public information.
Public
you know,
information.
But
yeah.
I just want to make sure we draw that
At least once a
distinction.
week. Is the mid-jail thing gonna go?
Yeah, exactly, people are always talking
I
about
said,
things
why
like
are you
that.
asking me? I don't know anything.
And that's a good answer.
Yeah, really,
Well,
'Cause quite frankly-
That's the truth.
the best answer,
Yeah.
if you don't know.
You don't know.
But I think confidential information is typically when we get into talking about people who are employed, people who are on the board. Let's say you get a notice of somebody inquiring about an ethical issue in the town,
Mhm.
that immediately becomes confidential to your
Yeah.
group.
That's right.
I mean, I
And
used to
that doesn't
think
get
what,
discussed anywhere
Right.
unless you felt it necessary to come to the full board.
Mhm.
Then the full board would go into executive session where that umbrella of confidentiality still maintains itself.
I mean, I think ours is easy because I think we are one of the few places where we probably are going to have the ability to keep things confidential, at least a lot of things confidential, more than other town boards.
Now, we
can.
deal with a lot of stuff that does become public
Yeah.
record, especially when you get into budgets.
Right,
You
Right.
start to see all of that. But if it's an issue on a legal issue,
right,
that becomes confidential.
right.
It's gotta be
Or
held.
bidding, when bidding's going on, there may be confidential issues, different.
Depending on what the information
Yeah,
is that
and
needs
you're
to
getting
be
information
discussed.
about competitors and you're talking about them. I mean, I just, that's all. I just
And
wanted
that
to
means the public
focus on
has
that
to
one.
leave.
Mhm.
But if you're part of that group that is discussing that information that is classified as confidential, under this obligation, you cannot go out and start talking about
Right.
it.
No, of course.
It's held in confidentiality.
I think I don't disagree with anything anybody
Yeah.
said. I just think it's one that we're going
You're going to need an example. a
have some
couple of
good
examples.
examples so people can understand.
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mary and Or those books.
And
Dick
the
and
only,
Jane.
only, I have
Age
one other
myself.
minor comment, and
Uh-huh.
it's, doesn't have to
Well,
be,
I've got a question.
Oh, actually, I
for
have
everyone
two.
On page 17, is whether or not, and this is in brackets, you know, I just sort of put this in here in case people had questions about, you know, who we are and, you know, what do we do? And one of the, do we want to highlight that we're available to answer informal questions? Do we want to project ourselves as being here to help?
I think it goes back to the first statement I remember that Betsy made. There needs to be a clear avenue through which people can communicate their questions.
Mm-hmm.
And you're it.
Yeah, and so.
And I
so-
think emphasizing that
Okay,
if an issue comes up that you feel might be in need of answer, there's an avenue on how to do
you
that.
know, and I think I'll put the three of our names and emails.
That almost becomes your closing statement
Yeah,
at the end of the
Right.
entire presentation.
yeah,
I would move that to the bottom
okay.
and then, yes, give them the tools on how to
Emails
contact
and
you.
cell phone
yeah,
numbers.
that's probably a good way to do it.
Now, they can always call the main office and ask for, but it's easier if you give people those
Yeah.
tools ahead of time. That's almost your closing statement.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for your attendance.
Uh-huh.
Just remember, the Ethics Board is now established, and we now have a clear avenue of communication if you feel, and we prefer that you contact us
Mhm.
so that we get clarification on some things that may be ambiguous out in the community that we need to answer. Then you guys come back with an answer to them,
Mhm.
Right,
which could be just to them, or if you feel it's a bigger issue, it becomes an issue that we publicize.
so I think what your concern was, are we opening ourselves up to,
Well,
you know, to
we do
the
want-
entire public calling and
Yeah.
asking questions?
I don't much like that.
which-
I'm wondering if that, we really
Yeah.
want to do that.
But we do want to be here to help board members and employees.
Absolutely.
And so I
I'd
think.
rather not have my cell phone. Though.
I'm wondering if we should,
I get calls.
if we do put anything in about that, should we use the town, we're going to have our own email box here.
Right.
Yeah.
And use that
I
instead of
think
people's
Yes, don't give
personal.
private information, just give that out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to have just
Okay.
people calling all hours of the day and
So-
night because they had too many drinks.
And also, I think in your presentation, as you're going through this whole packet, it's emphasizing it's applicable to town business.
Right.
We're dealing with town business.
Yeah, no,
I don't want to get calls on, you know, the dog catcher. I don't want to get calls on,
Well,
it's town business that we're talking about.
Yes, that's very important
Or
because
it
there's
is-
stuff that happens in the court that luckily poor Kristen takes all the time.
Yes.
We have a couple of neighbor problems that won't go away. You know?
Yeah,
It's town business, but the code of ethics is applicable only to board members and employees. It doesn't apply to an applicant. So an applicant can do whatever he or she
Oh, yeah,
wants.
yeah, they can talk all they
And
want.
they can talk all they want, and it's not a code of ethics violation because they're
Because they're
not
not.
covered
Yeah.
by it.
but we will get people making complaints about it.
And when they do,
Exactly.
Questions
the
about
answer is,
It's,
they are a private citizen, they're entitled to talk.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But I don't know that we want to hold ourselves out as,
No.
know, throw all those questions to us.
But I like the channel through your
The
established email.
I think the
I
end,
mean, I
the
think the
ending
email-
thing and giving the contact information, Mike's idea of moving the we're here to help sentiment to the end.
and make it clear that we're here to help the town of Washington.
And I would, I think, stop it after issues the advisory opinion, this
I think-
slide.
I think
And-
this whole presentation is going to give some people pause to rethink how they've been doing things in the past.
I hope people don't start resigning.
Well, some of them may, and if that happens, then that's a good thing. Better resign before a real problem
Yeah.
comes up. If they anticipate that there are going to be a lot of them. I mean, that's it would be unfortunate, but. better get it
Yeah,
out
but
the
better
way.
than
And it's
having a
also-
problem, yeah.
Quite frankly, if an ethics issue does come up, it reflects on the entire town. And you want to avoid that kind of.
Plus, it creates so much division,
Yes,
and
it's
people
part of it.
take
It's
sides
part
and
of
it,
Yeah, it's part of
it's,
it.
it's ugly.
Or they certainly circulate opinions.
Yes, and it's, we
All
don't,
kinds of things, depending on the day of the week.
And it's a good opportunity to get clarification on issues. Now, sometimes your answer might be, you have to take that up with the chairman of that committee. Speak to the chairman of that committee, attend the meeting. Those types of answers would be good answers.
and
So Jeff on his way out the door for one of our meetings said that there were actually a few more steps that the law needed to go through before becoming
the
effective.
Secretary of State, I think it has to go through the Secretary of State.
So if Jeff is still involved with his project,
It's not officially a law yet, you're right.
that's what I wanted
Yes,
to
that's
clarify.
right.
I would just email him,
Yeah.
because
so
typically
he's-
it goes
he's-
from our meetings to the minutes, to the adoption of the resolution, then the resolution gets filed. We may have heard back on it already, it's just we don't know. I don't know.
Okay, so I
I
will
don't know
reach out
that
to
answer.
Jeff.
Right.
And Jeff is still working on this project.
Oh, sure.
Not Sarah.
Yeah, he's fine.
I had one other slide
Sure.
comment,
I had one on gifts.
Okay.
which is, oh, you had one on gifts, so yours comes before mine. Go ahead, Betsy. Mine's at the end.
I think we might consider some of the ways the words are used a little bit. Because in reading it, first of all, can't solicit any gift. That should be there, I suppose, but I don't think people actually do that much. The other part of people offering gifts to employees is probably what does happen.
Right.
But when it says cannot accept a gift of $75 or more, where the gift could influence or could appear to influence the officer or employee. And, there are a lot of people that say, well, it's not gonna influence me, so it's okay.
So,
And I think that maybe we say, cannot accept a gift of $75 or more, either period, or where there might even be the appearance that it's, there's something about that should not happen at all. I don't know.
so do you
Can
want
you
to say?
think of incidents where it could happen and it wouldn't have any effect on the employee?
We get Christmas gifts
I would-
sometimes.
But what if
You get a
some,
bottle of booze. It's
Bottle of
not
booze, you might get
$75. If it's a $75 bottle.
what if your friend has an application pending someplace, but you're lifelong friends and they take you out to dinner for your
Well,
birthday
so
and it
that-
costs more than
so
$75?
there's
It's-
Well, they're taking you out to dinner for your birthday.
That's
I'll
the
give you an
exemption,
example.
I guess. That's the
Yeah,
exemption.
Yeah, so that's-
Let's say a controversial application has gone through the processes and it's gotten approved or disapproved. The faction that in quotes won sends a gift to the board saying, thank you for all your work. Do you accept that if it's above $75 or even if it's below $75? I would say you kind of stay away from that stuff. But people do that.
Yeah.
People do that. Whether they send cookies or they send whatever.
Well, should it be,
We already have in the law that it's $75. That's the threshold. Under $75, it's not an issue. Over $75,
That's not an issue.
Well, under 75?
$74.95 gift.
well, should it be directed at who's giving you the gift? I mean, cannot accept a gift of $75 or more
you can
from
always,
anyone doing business, who has
I
business
think
with
the
the town
onus
or
is on
something.
us to say, thank you for your kind thoughts, but
I can't
unfortunately, I
take
can't
this, yeah.
accept it. The thing is there, I
Looking
think,
at the reward for official action.
Yeah, it's.
and I think we're trying to avoid anybody
Yeah,
being
even
perceived
if nothing
as.
occurred, if somebody suddenly delivers, I don't know, a case of the best wine in
Yeah.
town, because something good happened a month before.
But this is what's in our law already now. I think this
Yeah,
exactly
it's-
tracks what's in the code, so.
Well, and it's also, it was in the old code.
And it's the-
This is a part of the code.
It's
that
the
hasn't changed.
standard, yeah.
Right.
So I,
Well,
It should be there, but,
Yeah.
I sort of
I'm just
think-
not sure we can make it tighter than it is without changing the law,
I'd
We
almost
could say-
like to say,
In general, you should not accept a gift of $75 or more.
when can you accept a gift of $75?
When it's
If you
given,
say in general.
when it's given so it doesn't influence
So,
anything. If it's a
Yeah.
thank you at Christmas time,
I don't think those things, I don't think that's what, you know, that's not what people would be thinking of.
well, you can accept gifts for more than $75 from people who aren't doing town business with you.
right?
It's just where the
Well, yeah,
appearance.
if there's a citizen who thinks the town board's doing a wonderful job, and they have no business with the town at all, they can send you
Absolutely.
if they want to.
Absolutely.
Um,
And you can accept it, or you can say thank you, but I can't accept it. But I think
I
what
think
this
the
is getting to
non-acceptance
is
the best
the
part.
pay for play, kind of. This is
Yeah,
what you're trying to avoid.
absolutely.
Well,
Pay for
I
play.
always thought it meant you're a normal person who can accept a gift from somebody for any reason whatsoever, as long as it doesn't have anything to do with the position you occupy and which I thought this handled. I mean, I'm now wondering if
I don't think
maybe
there's
it doesn't.
anybody who would admit that they might be influenced by something like this. I don't think there's anyone who'd say, I'm gonna give back all the gifts I've gotten over the years, now that I realize it.
I think this is a boilerplate section that appears in all
It is.
town
It's-
ethics things, especially when you get into large municipalities and
It's
urban
in,
areas where you're dealing with a lot of contractors and
Donald
stuff.
Trump apparently kept everything.
I think it's in the,
Is it
in the
this?
pamphlet, the contractor pamphlet
probably
even.
is.
I think it was. I think I saw it there too. I saw it somewhere else.
So here it says that municipal officers are prohibited from accepting gifts regardless of form if attempted influence could reasonably be inferred.
Correct.
I like that,
which is-
General municipal law.
Which is the law.
but I like just the law, actually.
Okay.
And
So
that's-
what do you think?
That's what our law says.
I can paraphrase that.
Right.
Yeah, the way that's written in the law seems to me to be somehow clearer. Maybe it's just because I like reading legalese, but.
But I think we should keep the reward for official action though, because that's an additional
Yeah, I think it
restriction.
is.
I think we should.
Rewards for what?
A reward for,
For, oh, yeah, if you can make that part of it.
Yeah, I think that should stay in.
And I don't think rewards for official action should even be, have to be above 75. I don't know, but I know that's what the town says, that's what your town rules.
the idea is that if it's under 75, then it's not.
De minimis, it's not going to influence
It's
it.
not going to influence.
It's not going to appear to be something that would influence.
I can't accept anything. so.
No,
I
No,
have different rules,
Yeah.
obviously. And it's probably just as well, because I would put a lot of people in jail.
That's why you don't want your telephone number out there.
I get enough calls as it is.
I'm sure.
Crazy people.
The
Actually,
last
not too many.
thing I had was, I wondered if under penalties for non-compliance,
Where are you? What's
I'm on page 20,
Oh,
page
okay.
20. They're, just for the sake of completeness,
Mhm.
there are all these New York State laws like Section 18 and all these other things where you can be prosecuted or have civil penalties. And I thought we ought to maybe add something like another bullet that says, or referral to law enforcement in the case of a
Oh,
criminal
yeah,
violation.
criminal.
the law does say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we should add something like that, just so
Referral to law enforcement for criminal violation.
for criminal violations, or maybe there's civil penalties too, but, or appropriate state and,
You keep
County
in mind too,
authorities or
that
something.
everybody has taken an oath whenever they have come on board. So
Yeah.
if you violate that oath, that's an ethical issue too.
yeah, that's true. That's all the nitpicks I had for today.
So I've got some follow-ups with Mary to get the email box up and running and to get the administration of the annual certification, figure out how that's going to work.
Okay.
Revise the deck and then email Jeff about the effective
Right.
date.
Um,
So are we envisioning December board meetings to add this to, or January, depending on what the schedule is?
I'm thinking we maybe should go after the holidays, because I think we're going to find out that we have
It's gonna be hard to find
another
a date.
bit of a, yeah.
If you do January, that is the month that we have to re-up all of our confidential statements.
Mhm.
You know, if new people have come on, we swear them in, all that type of thing. If it was an election year, it's typically December or January when all
that's
the
too
oaths
late.
take place. So not too late. I think January is fine.
Can we do it before they have to do all those things, though?
Who?
You mean-
Re-up their
You wanna do
certifications
the
and,
training in December is what you're saying.
well, I'd rather do it in January just to avoid it, people being away for holidays and things like that, but,
Well, if you're talking employees,
yeah.
you're talking various boards.
And all those
The
boards, yeah.
boards meet monthly unless they don't have an issue coming before them, like zoning sometimes doesn't have a meeting if they don't have an applicant. BAR only meets once a year. So I'm envisioning BAR being invited to whenever we do the employee base.
Mhm.
And that's usually held in
And
here.
would that be CAC be invited to that one too?
CAC
maybe?
has their own meeting.
Oh, they have their own meetings.
So you
okay.
can do it a half hour before their meeting and they meet monthly also.
They are monthly, okay.
Recreation meets monthly.
Okay.
So rather than pack it all in, you could spread it out over a couple of months
Yeah,
when you
Yeah.
hit various groups. I would hit your more influential boards first, which would be your zoning and your planning, and then your CAC, then probably recreation, and then BAR. BAR is, as you know, they're the board that decides on whether people's tax levies are appropriate. And that
Very sensitive.
sensitive,
Yeah.
confidential, neighbor.
Mhm.
So that could be a combination. The employees, you can work with Mary and call that anytime.
Okay.
And she just sends out an email saying,
Mhm.
the highway guys come. Now, as we get into the winter, getting the highway guys in here sometimes is a challenge.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
They might be busy, but not every day.
What about the town board?
town board, typically I would come to the employee ones and sit in on those. So it wasn't necessarily having you guys come in to do a half hour for a called special meeting of the board where only 4 guys or 5 people are sitting here.
Mhm.
I'm sure Bobby would come because he's retired. Joe would probably come if it was just to the employee
So
group.
we could get the town board members into one of the other meetings.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Leslie, for example, attends all the CAC
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
So she could do
She
the
attends,
then.
no, she attends planning and zoning also.
So that would be,
Or she could come to the one in the afternoon.
And now I'm wondering, how many meetings are we talking about?
You probably ended up with 4, maybe,
And then the employees,
That's a lot.
including the employees.
including the employee. Planning, zoning, board of appeals.
yeah. But,
I know, I
but
think
this
that
is- this
at
is-
least once it needs to be done,
Yeah.
and then we would be, I would presume, on a yearly basis, we would be picking up any new employees and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm envisioning doing the training once a year and picking up, so people would get it in their packets when they
Right.
come on, but we do the
I think
actual
do the
training
actual.
only once a
Okay.
year, is what I would
Okay.
think. But if,
That makes
but
sense.
of course, if they've got questions beforehand,
So that'll be separate.
Yeah.
People.
And I would think probably your easiest presentation would be the employees, because they're already here.
yeah,
It's just a matter of scheduling at 9 or 10 o'clock. They all come down here, highway comes in, you take your half hour. Might be good to do them first as a practice.
So we will check with Jeff to make sure that we're,
It's been filed.
we have
Legal.
that we're actually a committee that's,
Yeah.
can do all these things. And then we'll start scheduling meetings.
yeah. CAC has got a big meeting in December.
So that might be a good one to.
Well, no,
No,
I mean, it's
that'd be
actually.
too much
it's
information.
Too much
I
information.
think you'll
Oh.
overload them.
Yeah.
Okay, so
presentation.
maybe we should push to January.
Well, for that one, maybe.
You
but-
could do your employees in December.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it some, and depending on agendas, planning board zoning in December as well.
You may see in your employee one, the reactions. You may end up
Yeah.
revising how you're presenting, and it may even get more compressed. You
Yeah,
might not need 20 or a half hour.
I mean, I
Depending on the.
And
I
somebody
would
missed-
bet the employee ones, maybe I'm wrong about this, but in some ways, I feel like the people on the committees almost need this more than the employees.
I agree.
They do.
I mean, I think that's where the conflicts are
But the
gonna,
employees to
Yeah,
More
everybody.
from-
They need to be
Yeah, in
included.
different ways, I guess.
I mean, especially
Yeah.
small towns, oh, you're the clerk of the court, or you're the clerk of this, or clerk of that. The highway guys, they're always out and about. And small town, no newspaper, talk is the newspaper.
Well, there's a, yeah, I mean, we might want to think, we might want to have a little preparation session
Oh,
before
totally.
any of these things.
completely.
Do a
Where we-
practice
Because I'll
presentation to
bet you
yourselves.
the different communities are going to have different sets of questions. There are things we may want to emphasize more, like maybe with the highway guys, it's more about talking and gossiping and rumoring
Well,
and
I think if
accepting
you go through
gifts
each of your
and
slides with your examples.
using company facility or town facilities.
You may find at the end of it, any questions? Nope, you covered it all.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah. But I think that, investments and all that kind of thing are more likely to be a concern.
I think you're going to get
Committee
questions
level.
from those who always ask questions.
Yeah,
And,
That's
and
right.
off of all the committees, you're going to get certain people that are going to ask a lot. Even last night, Howard was hitting me with some questions, and the young lady that was sitting there,
Elizabeth Mandy?
yeah, she asked me a couple of
What
questions.
was last night?
Seriously.
yeah, and I started writing a little list of things that I thought people might ask questions about.
That's good.
And so we could have a
lawyer
conversation to
thing.
talk among ourselves
Get the
about
answers
how we would
before you ask
answer
the
the
question.
So no matter who's doing the presentation, we're all giving the same information in response
Yeah,
to a
that's,
question.
I was thinking of that as we were all talking.
Because it could be a concern if we haven't kind of gotten on the same page on frequently asked
Tell you the truth,
questions.
this is just common sense reinforcement, basically, is what you're.
No, it is.
It's a gut feel.
Yeah.
People need to trust their gut. If something
Yeah.
Oh, I
doesn't feel
agree.
right,
Totally
you know,
agree.
then it's.
I
then
told
that's-
my
just raise your
grandkids
hand.
that, when I taught school, I'd tell kids, you know that feeling you get sometimes when something goes wrong and you're not sure if it's right or wrong? You get it here, talk to somebody.
Yeah.
That's
Go to a
right.
teacher, go to your parents, go to a friend.
But, that's a really good point, and maybe that end slide you're going to create about the, hello, we're here,
Yeah.
here, maybe we should include a thought like that, that, not that we want people to sort of throw every question they ever have at us, but, they do need,
Or a little
Well,
cartoon.
no, it's interesting.
but they-
It'd be great if
I
we
like
could
the
find a
cartoon.
cartoon.
Yeah,
I
the-
love the cartoon.
but the thought, I like what Mike said, if you have that feeling that something may be wrong, or you're just not comfortable about it, we're here to
That's
talk
fair.
to you about that,
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair, yeah.
and, help you through it and, talk about things you can do to resolve the
And I think-
situation, whatever.
Just adopting the law, number one, and now educating, I think that's going to lessen a lot of people's anxieties that there was nothing in the town that allowed us to voice our opinions.
I think it's really the public that wants
And-
to be able to be heard more than the employees.
And in our
I'm afraid
minutes,
that, I think that is true.
and in
So
our
should we-
board meeting, after these presentations in the town board meeting, as your liaison, I will get that into the minutes that these trainings have occurred. That will
Oh,
be
yeah.
public information. The public will say, oh, they go through training.
Yeah.
So are we, do motion to adjourn?
I move the meeting be adjourned.
I second.
I second. So meeting's adjourned.
At
Thank you.
5:25.
Thank you all, this is good.
Very good.
I'm looking for a